Hello and welcome to our live Q&A session. Today with me we have a very interesting guest, but before we dive in, a few housekeeping items. Our WordPress security survey, closing date is 15 July, so it's still running. If you have not done the survey, please do so at malapress.com/survey. This will basically give us a better understanding of the security state of WordPress websites, and then of course we will publish the results that everyone can see and learn from each other. And also, we do these live streams every week on Thursday at 4 p.m. Central European Time and at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And like and subscribe to get notified of future events. And as well, if you have any questions, we'll be answering them live. So if you have any questions about WordPress or about what we'll be discussing today, please feel free to ask, and yeah, we'll answer them. Today with me, I have someone I just discovered we share the same hobby as well. He has been writing code for almost 2 decades. Has been in the WordPress industry for more than a decade, was involved in some interesting projects I found out, such as WP Owl's newsletter, Code and Coffee Show, has been co-organizing and speaking at WordCamps for a few years, and have seen quite a few vulnerabilities in WordPress and plugins and themes. Just to give you an idea, in October of last year, as part of the Cybersecurity Months, he led a bug bounty sprint at Patchstack, which resulted in finding 1,571 security vulnerabilities in themes and plugins, which led to the temporary closure of 1,000 plugins and themes from the repository.
Oh,
and
it wasn't temporary. It wasn't temporary. Okay. The 900 was...
permanent. Okay, good to know. And yeah, that is basically Maciek Palmowski. Welcome.
How are you? Hi, thanks. It's really great to be here. And yeah, we can talk, like you said, about either security, because yeah, I do have quite a lot to tell about. Sure. Or we can go to and start talking about cycling, because also why not? Yeah,
exactly.
It's also a great topic. I know that a lot of people from IT also like cycling. So yeah, you can decide. We can go with both.
Yeah, we promise people some security. So, but basically we're talking about bike packing and gravel cycling. It's nice. So if anyone shares these interests, yeah, like feel free to get in touch. And yeah, let's see if we can organize something together. But yeah, before we start, can you introduce a bit yourself for those who don't know you?
So yeah, I work at Patchstack, and for most of my career there, I was a community manager, but lately I changed to MVDP growth manager. And luckily, probably later we will talk about what MVDP is, because this is like a natural cause of this of when I introduce myself. What the hell is MVDP? But we will talk about this later. So yeah, I really take care about making sure that a lot of plugin vendors have a bit better approach to security, that they have that they understand what is happening, how they can streamline their security, and a lot of things related to security. But yeah, apart from this, because yeah, security is one part, but at heart I'm still a developer. And when I learned PHP many years ago, and when you started introducing me with 2 decades, I was like, oh man, I'm getting that old. But yeah, at some point I discovered WordPress. Back then I really loved WordPress, mostly for documentation. It was really good. But I stayed for the community. Nice. Apart from WordPress, I'm also a huge fan of other CMSs like StateMake or frameworks like Astro. So yeah, I love to try a lot of things.
Nice. Yeah, in fact, talking about being gold, it was mentioned during WordCamp Europe, during the live Q&A with Matt Mullenweg, because like I think it started, a university in Torino started kind of like some sort of like encouraging people to move more to web application and WordPress, purely because yeah, like it seems like now most of us are in their 40s plus basically, or late 30s. So yeah, it's time to get the new generation.
Yeah, this year for me was crossing the 40.
So. I see. Okay. So how do you feel about that?
I thought it would be worse. No, seriously, because you know the magic of round numbers. But
yes, but yes.
As you see, colorful, smiling.
Good. Exactly. Good. That's what matters. Yeah. So yeah, before because in fact you just mentioned it, like the MVDP, and like let's start with the basics, because as you said, as most probably you know, because you talk to a lot of people, many people don't know what are these things. So yes. VDP stands for Vulnerability Disclosure Program. MVDP stands for Managed Vulnerability Disclosure Program. Let's start with debate. Like, what is a vulnerability disclosure program?
So it can be either program or policy, because this abbreviation has
Yes.
it's all the same, but you can find like two versions over the internet. In short, this quite scarily sounding abbreviation is just a set of rules that a vendor establishes regarding how they disclose vulnerabilities. So, for example, they can disclose that all the timelines. So we'll be disclosing each vulnerability in, like, let's say 30 days. They also mention which way they use to contact them, what do they require, what they want to accept, and things like this. So in general, every policy might look different because it's up to you. You just set it up, you set up your own rules, and if someone wants to report something to you, they just have to follow your rules. On the other hand, there is the MVDP, so the managed vulnerability disclosure program or policy. And in most cases, this is a service. And I like to kind of compare it like it is with hosting, right? You can take any machine, you can install a server, you can do everything on your own if you know how to do it and you have the time to manage it and you have the skills to maintain it. Or you can just kind of outsource it or buy it from someone who even knows a bit more about the topic. That's why we are buying some managed WordPress hostings from people who know much more than us about it, and we don't have to spend our time trying to debug what's wrong. Other will do it for us. And the same goes with managed with MVDPs, because this way you ask others to help you with the process. So when someone would report a vulnerability, I will tell you base what happened with my
Yeah,
camera.
first, it's okay. We can
This
still hear you.
is
So yeah.
something. Yeah, this is something very weird. Of course, Elgato decided to. Uh, this is so weird. I mean, it should work correctly, but
Does it zoom? I mean, it still looks.
no.
It's just the colors are a bit different,
Oh,
but
I see
there's
what
still.
is wrong. Let me just
There you
check.
go. There you
Okay,
go.
now the
There you
colors
go.
are perfect. Yeah, I just switched to another camera.
No way.
Yeah, so and like I was saying, so the whole process is you will get a lot of help in it. So, for example, when someone will send you a report, we will help with the triage to check if the report is valid or is it just a bug bounty. Also, then we will help with all the steps along the process. Of course, apart from the one that is totally on the vendor, like providing us with the fix, right?
Of
Because we
course.
want. So imagine that thanks to MVDP, you can focus just on the important things for you. So making sure that your code is secure, instead of worrying about all the procedures and everything around it. And let's be honest, the topic of security, it has like two faces. One that we know from TV, right, with the hackers. It seems fascinating. On the other hand, a lot of things related with security are just procedures and following the procedures, and it's not that exciting at all. But someone has to do it, and this is kind of the place when services like MVDPs can help you a lot, because in the whole process that will happen. Uh, the only thing you I mean the only the most it's still the most important part, but still you will only have to worry about providing a working patch and releasing it in public. But you will also get help about how to do it, uh, to also make sure that the changelog is that the changelog will really tell that the vulnerability is there and was
Yes.
there,
Yeah.
things like this. So yeah, you can just focus on the important stuff, and everything around, yeah, someone will help you.
Good. It's interesting that you mentioned, like, like security is typically associated especially on TV with hacking behind the computer with hoodie and stuff. It also, I think, depends on which side you are, because like we, like many other vendors, of course, had security issues reported to us, and when you're on the other end, it's a bit different. As you said, like you panic, you have to find out where, what, get the BOC, when, how we're going to disclose it, plan it, plan the release. So yeah, there's much more. In fact, let's look at the MVDP for now. Like, but can you just give us roughly like what happens from when someone, like, can you walk us through the life cycle? What happens from when someone reports a security issue to Patchstack about a plugin till the end? What's typically the life cycle there?
Okay, so yeah, everything starts with a hacker or with a security researcher that will fill out a form, provide us with all the data, and the first step will be that we will verify if this vulnerability is real. Is it real? Does it work? Can we reproduce it? And sometimes this is a very interesting thing because when I follow some of the discussions between the security researchers and our triage team, we see that sometimes, for example, sometimes someone didn't provide a fully working proof of concept or forgot to write something. So yeah, it requires a bit back and forth from time to time. But when we know that the report is valid, then this is the moment when we will inform the vendor that, hey, there is a report, that there is a vulnerability inside of your plugin. And we also mentioned that, we are just passing the information. We don't want any reward. It's not a scam, nothing like this. And so this is like the moment when we establish the contact for the first time. And already I can tell you that this can be sometimes. If someone is a part of our MVDP, that's simple because we
They know about you
contact,
already, kind of thing. Yeah. So yeah.
and the other way around, we know how to contact them because they left the email. But in many cases, finding a way to contact someone, this is the difficult part. So this is a thing to remember. Number one, always make sure that it's easy to contact you. And if you have a form, check it from time to time. Is it even working? Because I can tell you that we had a lot of cases when our adventure of trying to contact someone ended at this form.
It's quite strange. I mean, like you're developing software, even if it's free kind of thing, you would expect someone would have some sort of contact form or something, or disclose some ways how they can be contacted, even for feedback. So, but yeah, but I know because I spoke a couple of times to Oliver. Like, he told me how many times you have problems just finding a contact point. Yeah,
exactly. And this is now the moment when the vendor is informed about the vulnerability for the first time. And the most important thing for this person is not to panic. It's just a vulnerability, really. So it's really important to stay calm. I know it, especially when you get such a report for the first time, it might sound a bit scary, right? Because hey, there is a vulnerability. It doesn't sound nice. But yeah, you will get a description of what is happening, where it is happening, and sometimes also quite a few tips on how you can solve it. We also have this site called the Academy. You can find it on patchstack.com/academy with all the tips how to protect about different types of vulnerabilities. So this is also a very helpful place. And now it's up to you to create the patch. When you create the patch, you need to send it back to us, and we will see if the patch is enough or maybe it requires some extra work. Sometimes we kind of, after developing the patch, we kind of discover something else and stuff. But in general,
I think it happens because it's very important. Because even you mentioned the fact that you triage the issue yourself, it's important because even it happened to us sometimes. Like me, I've been working in software in general for the same like 20 years. I think even the best developers, it does not necessarily mean that they know about security. Usually, and that's why, like, usually security experts, especially if it's a very complex vulnerability to exploit or whatever, like an edge case, like the developers might be unable to reproduce it, so they cannot understand what's happening, why and where. And that's why kind of an VDP is helpful, because you're saying that, hey, this is what's happening, this is how you fix it, and chat, right? And the same, yeah. And as you said,
Yeah.
once they submit the patch, it does not mean necessarily that they close the issue completely, or as you said, maybe they open other doors. Unfortunately, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So there are a lot of cases, but yeah, we will just repeat the process until the point when the patch is good, and this is the moment when the vendor has to release the patch. Also, it's very important to be very transparent about what happened. So it's very important to add to the changelog information that some sort of vulnerability or this patch is security related. I mean, in general, it's always a good practice to release security patches separately from the feature patches, so the people update your will update your plugin without worrying that some functionality will break, right? And so yeah, the worst part is done right now because the fixed plugin is already released into the wild, and the last part will be on us after 30 days from the initial contact. 30 days, or I mean, it depends on some, but the default one is like 30 days from the initial contact. We make the public disclosure, we publish a CVE, and then you can also find everything inside of the Patchstack vulnerability database. And in a very short time, all the other databases will also
Of
get
course, yeah.
this information. But there is one also thing happening in the background, and this is something really cool, because between discovering the vulnerability and the moment when we release the patch, there is quite some time. So what to do to make it a bit more secure? And this was kind of the reason, and I must say, this was something when I was joining Patchstack for the first time and I started reading more about it. I was really intrigued by this concept, the whole virtual patching.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting, different way.
Yeah, it was. So, like I said, when I joined Patchstack and I started reading about it, when I read about it, I was like, yeah, that's a remarkable idea. In short, when we discover a vulnerability, also in the background, we create something called a virtual patch. If I would compare it to something simple, it's a very specific type of firewall. I think it's like the best way to compare it. That is pinpointing exactly what is happening in the vulnerability and kind of protects about it. So in the time between we discover the vulnerability and the time that the patch is released, the virtual patch is already there. So everyone who is using, for example, Patchstack or someone related with us will be protected against those vulnerabilities. And this is really amazing because it's also great for plugins that will not respond to our report.
Exactly.
That they will stay not fixed.
The question is, of course, like, if people are using Patchstack, but of course there are many other people who are not. So, like, when someone, especially if it's a big plugin, when someone releases an update, a security update with a patch, how much should they disclose in the changelog? Maybe even, like, should they even disclose the type of vulnerability? Because once you're doing that, I'm presuming some plugins have millions of installations or hundreds of thousands. I'm pretty sure there is someone going to make some sort of code diff and going to find out right away what's happening. So then there is a mass exploiting everything. And it's somewhat, I wouldn't say it's a 0 day, but the reality is we see it in our plugins. I speak to other vendors, very common. It takes time for people to update the plugins. You have like 25% to 30% of the people who always update on time and stuff. But then you have a big majority. I see that myself. Sometimes we get support requests. Oh, we have this issue. Yeah, that's a plugin from 2.5 years ago. So, like, how much should they there disclose
So,
and what should disclose kind of thing.
so the cool part and the problem of everything that's open source is the moment when they release a patch, and they will even mention that it's a security release, they already disclose everything because everyone can see the can do the code diff. And hackers, those bad ones, I mean those mean ones, are doing this constantly. So the moment when the patch is released, yeah, it's constantly being checked. All the change logs are being checked. So uh, we kind of have to treat the fact that the developer is transparent uh, as an extra motivation for the users. Yeah, you have to update your soft. You just have to.
Yeah,
And if you don't, you have to have also some additional layers of protection apart from the from making sure that your software is up to date, right? And this is also kind of the thing that I was always advocating for, that security, do not ever treat security like, I don't know, a plugin, which is one of the most common mistakes among people. That, yeah, I have this and this plugin, I'm secure. No, you're not. You
no,
just have a security plugin. That's great that you have it. Okay, perfect. But that's just one layer. I mean, like security. I mean, officially, we prefer to say that it's like a cheesecake that has layers, but the truth is, it's more like an onion, right? It still has layers, but like onion, onion is more of a Polish thing to say. But yeah, it's really important to be prepared on many levels. And yeah, of course, having the security plugin, yes, it's one of those things, but also having procedures, and also procedures, backups, having procedure what to do when something will go wrong, because there are those moments when it will go wrong. Yeah, you have to be
definitely, yeah.
prepared for a lot of things.
Yeah, and I think that's why some best practices come in place. One of them is, of course, keeping the software up to date. And if you have large infrastructures and different setups, different frameworks and stuff, it's important to at least have some sort of staging and other environments where you can, as soon as there's a patch, especially if it is a security patch, yeah, at least you can run a few tests, and within a matter of hours, or at least just a few days, you're up and running. Because as you said, like many people, it's not, security is not just about layers. There's one thing, you can have different plugins for different things and different solutions and different services, but it's also about sticking to the best practices, because you can have the best firewall in the world. If you don't update your software, keep your software up to date, if you still use some very weak credentials and you just share credentials and create text, yeah, you can have the best firewall in the world, because the chances of any account credentials being exposed are very high. So,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
yeah. So
Yeah, so and this is also important to kind of do this check once in a while of your whole stack and everything that is connected with it, because it might turn out that there is this weak spot somewhere. I mean, for me, one of the best examples was GitLab many years ago, when they dropped the database on production, just to learn that while they do have terabytes of backups, they aren't working.
it's with backups, it's a common problem. And I always tell people, like, oh, yeah, we have backups. No, but do they work? That's the, as in, like,
Exactly.
are you able to restore them? Like, are you able
Uh,
to get the backups and restore them and make sure you can restore the website as it was at least the last time it was backed up? It's a very big
yeah.
problem. That's one, yeah. Impressive. So, if there is no MVDP, let's say a vendor doesn't have an MVDP, like, what is the procedure? Like, if someone, we're selling plugins, I get an email, hey, we found this issue. Like, how do you recommend we should proceed, basically?
So, first thing is, it will depend on your skill set, right? If you feel that you know your you know how to handle the whole problem, yeah, you can try. But in most cases, let's be honest, it's better to find someone who will help you. Because, like I said, there are quite a few procedures that you have to follow. And personally, I'm not sure if I would like to do it on my own.
No.
And I think, yeah, so this is kind of the moment when, uh, because yeah, you can join a lot of those MVDPs for free, and so just
Why
do
not?
it, do it,
Yes.
pass the report, and use their knowledge, because like I said, the boring part of security and all the procedures that you have to follow, yeah, it's just better to find someone who will guide you, and especially the part of the patch validation. This is something that is very important, because imagine that you will release a patch, you will even mention that, hey, I fixed something, but you missed something. So, and not only you said that there was a vulnerability, someone will check your code, and someone will see, okay, but you left something.
Yeah.
Perfect. Let's try.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, this is, if you really don't feel uh, good at it, really better ask for help.
Yeah, I think on based on personal experience, I mean, like most companies of a certain size don't have their own security team. Most developers and developers, as we said, you can be the best developer in the world at writing code and developing new features, and but security, especially some issues, they're so specialized that someone needs to be an expert in it. Like, for
Oh,
example, like Boolean SQL injections, like a normal developer wouldn't even know from where to start
yes.
troubleshooting it, or something like that, or
and and I can even tell you that this is one of the biggest misconception that I really don't know why it happens, but a lot of users think that developers are great to talk with them about security. No, they don't. I mean, one of the things that I also learned very quickly when I started working with a lot of the security researchers from our Patchstack Alliance was that they have a totally different mindset. Because I feel that really developers are more about creating stuff, right? Adding features, adding new things, and security researchers are a bit more on the destruction side. I feel that their mindset is a bit more closer to people that are related with quality assurance, with QA and things like this, because it's about finding this way about no one thought, and let's see what happens. And one just check the workflows, and the security researchers check, okay, maybe someone just forget to validate something or didn't thought about something. And like I said, when i'm when when I'm looking for work of some of our researchers, I'm truly amazed. I would never ever even start thinking this way as they do. And they just do things like this. They really sometimes find those magical vulnerabilities in the way. I'm like,
yeah.
amazing. Truly, I'm amazed. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like I've been working in security. I'm not a security researcher per se, but I know, of course, like some things how they work, etc. I know the concepts of some things, but it's not the first time. I remember once, like a few years ago, like it's also like how creative these people are, because I remember there was this attack on the Apache Foundation. Like someone
Mhm.
identified an issue with their bug tracking system, basically. Anyway, they worked their way up through multiple vulnerabilities, some social engineering, and they ended up gaining access to the Apache.org Foundation root server. It's like wow! It's like,
Yeah.
and when you look at it, it's like you wouldn't even imagine like how do they even think about it by going that way or
Right?
this way, or it's so creative, and it's
It
about,
is.
as you said, it's more about their approach is about maybe not necessarily breaking in a bad way, but that's their approach. It's like, listen, let's see what are the limits, or like how can we go around this, and yeah, and go where we don't have access. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. Um, what happens? So as you said, like some plugins were permanently closed as gesture. Like what happens up until this day? Like if someone reports an issue, yeah, and the vendor doesn't reply, or maybe it's an abandoned plugin, or the vendor ghosts you. Where's the, because I'm presuming the advisory still has to be released, but like if then it becomes a 0 day in the wild, like where's the balance there? Like as most vendors, not just you, anyone who has like these vulnerability databases, are advisories still published? Like is there like any process, any thought behind it?
So If we are talking about, for example, plugins from the official repository, because this is like one of the, I mean, this is one of the most popular place we
Yes,
get
exactly.
right. So when we cannot contact, or yeah, when we just can't contact the vendor, at some point we just reach out to the plugin review team, and they try to do it. If they manage and the person starts responding, that's great. And if they don't, well, the plugin gets first temporarily closed on the repository, and following our vulnerability disclosure, at some point we just disclose it publicly because
It has to, because people has to know,
it
right?
has to, exactly.
Yes.
And at some point, the temporary closure becomes permanent, and that's it.
Yeah,
So it just get closed, and this is kind of one of the WordPress biggest problems, because I think that WordPress is one of the best done update system. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's very easy to use for everyone. Everyone can really update all the plugins with a click. People are really well informed that, hey, there is an update, do this and this. In short, it's really good. On the other hand, I still do not understand why we don't have the same notification. Hey, this plugin got closed on day this and this because of security reasons. Find a replacement. We don't have it.
but
Although there is an
it is on the website, no, on WordPress.org. You do
on the
get a
website,
notification.
yes, but
But I mean, as a user, you don't get it's just very good point. Okay, so basically, just
you don't get into an admin, and there is an API endpoint. There is everything. There is even a ticket open since I think 12 years
okay.
when we are discussing.
Okay.
So yeah, this is one of those things that sadly still isn't here, and and this was something we really realized when we were doing this. We like to call it the epic backhand, right? Because it was quite epic.
Yeah.
That we removed like 900 plus plugins from the official repository, but a lot of people
Still
won't even
using
know
them.
about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
some of them they might be still in use, and some of the vulnerabilities that we found in some of them were like really critical.
I can imagine. Yeah, and it's kind of it's a must-have feature, because like it's in the interest of the whole WordPress community that these people who are still using these vulnerable plugins are at least advised, because you don't want them using it, because otherwise you're simply having more vulnerable websites just of getting hacked, and the usual news, especially news like to sensationalize WordPress insecure and all this stuff. So
And
yeah.
I would even say, because one of the arguments against having those notification is that it will look bad, from the PR point of view, right? When you open the admin panel and we'll see that, I don't know, two plugins are, you should not use it because they were closed or because of a security reasons, they are dangerous. But on the other hand, I think it would still look better than the scenario that you said a moment before. So the moment when, people didn't knew about the vulnerability, they were still using the plugin, and at some point the whole server got hacked. So I think that from even the marketing point of view, having those notifications, it's a much better approach.
Isn't about time, especially nowadays, when more people are exposed and are using the internet, and especially with WordPress, it's made it so easy to have a website. Like for more people to become a bit more aware of some things. For example, like even with vulnerabilities, like most probably any other vendor, we had vulnerabilities in our plugins. There are two ways to look at these things. You can say, oh, these vendors had a vulnerability, so they're not good. But in reality, the fact is, the way you can judge a vendor is not if they had issues or not, but whenever there were issues, did they release a patch on time, were they cooperative and stuff. Because at the end of the day, like even WordPress, in the early days, it had its fair share of issues. The reality is, like, you can look at it also in this way: the more vulnerabilities a particular software has, it means the more secure it is, because it's been through a set of files, it's been checked, people are reporting, and now they're no longer there. So there's much less to discover.
Exactly.
So maybe it's as well about how people look at vendors, maybe.
I mean, that is something very interesting. And I had this discussion like a few days ago during WordCamp Krakow. One of the plugin vendors asked me what to do to be sure that my plugin won't have a vulnerability. And I'm like, look, there's
It's
nothing bad.
impossible.
I mean, it's nothing bad in having a vulnerability. There are some big, massive companies that have thousands of vulnerabilities
Yes.
over their lifespan, and it didn't prevent them from being, I know, enormous. I mean, like Microsoft, right?
Yes. I
They
think,
have
yeah,
they
of
get
course, yeah.
thousands of vulnerabilities, and Windows is still the most popular operating system, and it's also because how they handle them. Because yes, they handle them really well, and the same thing goes here. It's not about. I mean, when you when I see a plugin that doesn't have a vulnerability, right now I feel that this is something like when you check for some product reviews and only see all the positives. You started to think, yes, something might be off. And I also prefer to see when I see a company that has a history of vulnerabilities, because based on this you can check how well did they cooperated, how quickly they fixed everything, or maybe they didn't, because there are examples of plugins with vulnerabilities in the wild, right? And one of the best examples that I witnessed during my time at Patchstack was, for example, Bricks. Bricks was amazing how they handled, because at some point one of our researchers found a vulnerability in few page builders. It was almost the same. It was about using the eval function, and Bricks, when they got informed, they really quickly released a quick fix. They informed all the users about this because it was unauthenticated, so it was very serious. It still got exploited, but on a really small scale. Another thing, they also published a blog post again explaining what happened, what were the mistakes we made, and how we fixed it. And I remember that around a month later, they rewrote the whole part of it. So based on one vulnerability that they had, they managed to fix their whole a really huge piece of code to make the plugin much more secure. So this was one of the best examples of how you can deal with this. And yeah, there was a vulnerability. It was a critical one, but the way how they handled it was like the greatest thing you can see. And while I'm not a fan of any page builder, because I'm one of those, yeah, if I won't write the code on my own, it just doesn't work. It doesn't count, right? But the truth is that when someone asks me about, yeah, which page builder would you advise, Bricks will always be on the list, because I will say, look, I saw how they handled a really big security issue, and they were really professional. So if you want to stick with them for a longer lifespan, you can be sure that they will take at least the security part seriously. So yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. In fact, to be honest, even like the first time we got a vulnerability on our plugin reported, I was quite. It's a bit of a bittersweet, as in like bitter because of course there's an issue, and it was the first time we were much smaller, so we didn't know kind of like how to handle, especially from the marketing point of view and the impression people might get of the plugin. But at the same time, having a vulnerability, as you said, if you see a plugin without anything, it means like there are no eyes on it. The fact that we got a vulnerability, it means someone is actually interested in our plugin and they're looking at it and they saw it
Mhm.
somewhere. So which is a good thing. So when evaluating, like you want to choose a plugin for your website, like
Yeah.
of course you're going to look at the vendor reviews and stuff. So do you think like users in general, agencies especially, because they're going to use a plugin on, depends on how many clients they have, but some of them
Yeah.
have like tens, hundreds and thousands, should kind of like having a VDP or MVDP be some sort of like sign that this vendor takes issues seriously, handles these issues seriously? What do you think?
It's one of the few signs that they are taking the topic a bit more seriously. It's not like something that will say, okay, they have a
Of
MVDP,
course, yes.
amazing, they're
It's
100%
never
secure.
like that,
No,
but yeah,
yeah, but that's also important to remember that MVDP doesn't work this way. It means that okay, the vendor is taking security probably more seriously, that he will have help in some parts of the process, uh, but that's it. It doesn't mean anything else. I mean, when someone asks me about how I evaluate if the plugin is secure or not, there are quite a few steps, and even if I don't have time or access to the code itself, because sometimes the premium plugins that are behind the paywall. So the things where that I look at is, first thing, I go to some vulnerability database and check for the plugin's history, because this is one of the best places. And it's also important not to just look at the quantity, because it's more important to look at how the quantity change over time, because we can find some plugins that had let's say a bit more rough time at some point in history, when where some security researchers started discovering vulnerabilities.
of course, it also
But if
depends on the size and functionality. So there are a
of
lot of
course there are so
factors
many
there. Yeah,
things
yeah.
that can happen, but if it's it's clearly visible that over time the amount of vulnerabilities dropped, that's a good sign, because they mean that okay, we made mistakes, but we fixed them. And also it's also important to check if all the vulnerabilities were fixed, right? Because if not, it's a great sign that probably it's not the best plan. Also, one thing that is very important to check, if is the developer transparent about those security issues. So I always like to kind of cross check the vulnerability database and the changelog. And
Okay.
if I see that in the database there was a vulnerability, and in the changelog I see minor user interface fixes, I would be like, okay, I
They're
don't
hiding it.
I
Yeah.
don't- yeah, I don't think I would like to trust you, because you're kind of ashamed of something that should be transparent. So and also kind of checking if someone has, I don't know, some security page or something like that, with all the procedures, with how they uh, again, all of those are still not a guarantee that the plugin right now is secure, but those are really good to kind of help with the assumption uh, that they are uh, at least trying
True.
to, to be really serious about security. On the other hand, it's also important because some plugins have a bad reputation history wise, and sometimes it's correct because they weren't that good in terms of security for all the time. Uh, but it's again important to check the data, because for me one of the best examples of this is WordPress itself. WordPress has a reputation that WordPress security is bad.
Yes, coming from the old days and the early days, exactly. Yes.
It comes from this and from the fact that a lot of people assume that the fact that there are vulnerabilities inside of plugins, it's the fault of WordPress, which is not. And this is kind of the problem of those ecosystems that are also connected with other plugins. Because, for example, I had this chat with Miriam from Elementor, and she also mentioned that this is also one of the problems of Elementor, that Elementor right now is doing really a lot of things to make sure that their code is as secure as possible, and they really do a lot. Uh, but on the other hand, they have this huge ecosystem of third-party plugins that will be called something for Elementor, and those aren't that secure. But when someone gets hacked through this plugin,
It's elemental.
They will connect the fact that it's the Elementor's fault. Elementor security sucks. No, it doesn't. Elementor really does a great job. And the same happens with WordPress, right? Someone got hacked because you used some weird plugin that no one tested for tens of years. And it's WordPress' fault. No, it's not.
In fact, it's. I think I haven't followed it, but I think it's been a while since there was like a good vulnerability in WordPress core. It's been a while.
The last year there were 7 vulnerabilities found in core.
Yeah.
None of them was severe. Year earlier, again, it was 7. I remember the number because I have a few presentations about it. So I always like to show this number.
Yeah.
And you're right. Really, WordPress core is really secure. It is. And when someone says that WordPress isn't secure, this is a great example of how the whole ecosystem reputation can affect the core product. And like I said, we see it with everything. We see it with WooCommerce, we'll see it with Elementor, we see it with WordPress, we'll see it with every plugin that has an ecosystem. That's why it's important.
It's visible because earlier on this year, you, Patchstack, and Sukuri published a report, and I think the most 2 common issues with hacked websites are user issues, as in not updated software and credentials / similar stuff. So it's clearly not WordPress' fault, and I think the media doesn't help either, because the media kind of
it's always they always love to make it a bit more spicy, right? How bad WordPress is, how unsecure it is. And after you read this really loud title, because we found a vulnerability in a plugin that is installed on 100 websites. Okay,
but I see a lot of I receive a lot of newsletters, of course, not the first time. Actually, almost, I wouldn't say on a daily basis, but maybe on a weekly basis, I receive some newsletter. 600,000 WordPress websites at risk of, and then you'll find out like, okay, maybe it's a big plugin, but it's some really edge case where someone has to be logged and do this and has this plugin alongside. So the media, unfortunately, doesn't help with these things. They sensationalize marketing.
And I can tell you that I had this discussion with someone. We were discussing about the fact how important it is when you are this company that releases those tech advisories about how you write the title.
Yes.
Because while sometimes really this plugin, because if it is a really huge plugin with something really serious, with unauthenticated, with a lot of those things, so it's like if the vulnerability is there, everyone can kind of use it. But in most cases, there are a lot of ifs. And I remember that one of those articles that was like, I don't know, let's say 100,000 websites in danger. And it turns out that the vulnerability only happened when you had one option enabled and only on Windows Server. And you're like,
it's like, yeah, good luck.
Great. So it's like 20 websites, tops, let's be honest. So, but yeah, on the other hand, this is also, and I mean, this is the cool part of being a 40-year-old. I can kind of sound like a grumpy old man. That's cool. Because what I want to say, this is all the fault of the media and the internet and all those big businesses. But it kind of is, because those algorithms really love when you have this juicy title. So, if you will write that, we found a vulnerability in a plugin that affects only a few edge cases. Just make sure it's not you. No one will care. But if you will go with that, gazillion of websites in danger.
Exactly. And unfortunately, some vendors do it as well, which don't help. It's just, but hopefully, there's much more I'd like to talk to you about. I mean, there's much more we can talk. But we just start closing. It was nice. Quick one before we start. Where can people find you, your websites, your business? Like, how can they get in touch?
So, of course, the main thing, especially from the security part, visit Patchstack. visit Patchstack because there is a cool blog. You can read a lot of interesting stuff there. There is this database that I told you about. It's also very useful. But apart from this, you can find me on Twitter, on Blue Sky, on LinkedIn. Just search for my name, Maciek Palmowski. And I have also my blog, maciekpalmowski.dev. And I even have a newsletter. So if you'd like to read what I write once a week, it's also a nice place to do.
Nice.
There is a link on my blog, so
Nice.
you'll find it.
Yes, I think it's very important. I think if there's one, there are quite a few highlights which we can take from today's session. But one important thing we need to highlight, like I think every vendor should have, maybe I know it's not easy to do it compulsory, but every vendor should have some sort of VDP, ideally MVDP. As we said, like most developers, it's not a question of they are good or bad. It's just like they are not specialized in that subject, so it's much easier. I mean, we ourselves, we're not paid from Patchstack or anything, but yeah, we do use the Patchstack MVDP, and I worked quite a lot with you, with Darius and other guys. So yeah, and it definitely helps. And as you said, maybe by seeing that a vendor is part of MVDP, maybe okay, it doesn't necessarily means that they are taking things seriously, but at least it's one step towards hopefully getting better.
Exactly. Yeah, and it really when you are evaluating a plugin, it's always the set of small little things you see about them. It's never this that they are secure, they are not secure. This is
it's never black and white. It's always
never.
Yes.
It's always about a lot of those small things, and really you do have to play as to be a detective when you research for a plugin. There are really a lot of those hints you have to find over the internet. Like I said, this cross-checking the database and the changelog. I know it sounds weird, but it's a really good method to see if someone isn't hiding the truth. Yeah.
And as you said, sorry.
Yeah.
The number of issues doesn't necessarily, for example, mean they're good or bad, as you're saying, like checking the changelog, the frequency maybe, and stuff like that, right? I mean, it's
exactly there are a lot of. I always like to really check the blogs, because when I see that the company is really transparent about it, it's a good sign, because I can imagine that there are really a lot of CEOs or departments that take care of how you look on the outside, that when they hear, yeah, let's go public about the fact that we kind of messed up and had the vulnerability. I know that for many people, like, Jesus, let's not do something like that. It's horrible. But in the long run, it's a really good way to do so, because I can tell you, because today I had a discussion with my friends. It's one of the it's quite a big company when it comes to WooCommerce plugins, and he said something like this: when I was starting programming, when we started building all those plugins, I didn't take that much care about all the cross-site scripting related stuff, and I didn't care about it almost at all.
Most beginners
And after
don't, let's face it.
Yeah, and after few years, all of that bited him back. So it's always very important to take care of security, because when we talk about, because I know that every company will go something with, the thing that we do is the most important, right? At every conference you will see, yeah, the SEO is the most important part, the accessibility is the most important part, performance is the most important part, and in the end, yeah, I will go and say, hey, remember, security is the most important part. And the truth is, when we talk about performance, yeah, a slow website will probably make us lose some clients. Bad SEO, the same. We can lose some clients, but in both cases we can recover. With accessibility, again, this is something that again, you will lose part of it, but you can again recover from it. With security, especially with those worst case scenarios, when it turns out that your beautiful terabytes of backups just doesn't work, it may turn out that yeah, security was the most important part, because if you do it wrong, your cyber business might really disappear entirely.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
True.
That's why I can say that, yeah, security is the most important.
It is. It is. Thank you very much, Maciek, and it was nice
Thank
having
you so
you.
much.
I will definitely have you back again on some of Patchstack. There's much more, actually, as you know. We had
But
a few more
but
notes on subjects, but next time.
but I really hope that next time we'll just do it, I don't know, some on tour with cycling and things like this.
Who knows?
We'll
Maybe
try.
from a tent
We'll
next
try.
to a lake. Why not?
Why not? Why
Life.
not? We should. We definitely should.
Definitely. Thanks a lot, Maciek. Thanks, everyone. Thanks
Thanks
for
a lot.
following. Like and subscribe. And yeah, you can reach Maciek. You search on Google. He has his own blog, Twitter, and he also works at Patchstack. And Patchstack have their own VDP, which we use as well. We were not paid to say this, by the way, just to be transparent. But yeah, it's we're quite happy. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. And to the next one.